For centuries, the high Arctic was an unforgiving, frozen void that routinely claimed the lives of explorers who tried to cross it. By the mid-20th century, aviation and cold weather technology had finally caught up. Civilian mapping expeditions and private scientists had the tools to actually map and conquer the top of the world. Then, in 1952, the United States and Canadian governments aggressively shut it down. They pulled permits, grounded civilian flights, and drew a strict invisible wall across the Arctic Circle. The military gave zero official explanation for why this massive sector of ice was suddenly off-limits. When the government refuses to provide an answer, the public imagination quickly fills the void. You have to view this through the lens of 1950s culture. The Roswell incident happened in 1947, and a boom in UFO sightings was making front-page news across the country. Rumors heavily focused on the famous polar explorer Admiral Richard E. Byrd. People circulated stories claiming Byrd had actually flown through an opening at the pole and discovered a lush, tropical entrance to the hollow Earth. What was the military actually hiding out on the ice that required locking down millions of square miles of the globe? The American military was reacting to a very real, terrifyingly terrestrial threat that required absolute secrecy to counter. In 1949, the Soviet Union successfully detonated their first atomic bomb. That single explosion completely erased America's sense of geographical safety. This standard flat map illustrates how most people viewed the world at the time. It looks like the US and the USSR are safely separated by thousands of miles of the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. But if you look at a 3D globe from the top down, a highly concerning spatial reality emerges. The absolute shortest flight path between the Soviet Union and major American cities is a straight line directly overlaying over the cold. If the Soviets launched a fleet of nuclear strategic bombers across this polar route, the US had zero early warning radar infrastructure pointing north to spot them. The natural curvature of the Earth turned the barren Arctic into the single most dangerous, high-stakes battleground of the Cold War. To solve this problem, the Department of Defense partnered with scientists at MIT in 1952 to design a massive detection network. They secretly mobilized to airlift tens of thousands of tons of steel, sensitive electronics, and military personnel directly into severe Arctic blizzards. They were building the Distant Early Warning Line, or DEW line. It was a continuous 3,000-mile chain of 63 highly advanced radar stations, stretching from Alaska all the way to Greenland. Securing the area allowed the military to build a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure project directly on top of the ice without outside observation. Erecting this massive detection grid in the most extreme environment on the planet required complete isolation from the public. The logistical challenge was compounded by the hardware itself. Mid-20th century radar technology was highly advanced, but it was not completely perfect. Each radar station emitted a sweeping circular range, leaving small, unmonitored gaps. If a civilian mapping expedition recorded the exact geographic coordinates of these remote domes, Soviet spies could calculate the ranges, allowing bombers to thread through blind spots undetected. Restricting the Arctic ensured the location of these blind spots remained classified, preventing a Soviet flight path from bypassing the early warning system. By 1957, the complete DEW line was fully operational, giving the military a critical 3 to 6 hour warning window to scramble defenses if an invasion began. Because this system guaranteed the US would have time to counterattack, it served as a successful deterrent. The dreaded polar nuclear strike never actually came. The utilitarian reality of the DEW line, a sprawling network of steel and radio waves, replaced the 1950s mythology of alien bases and tropical holes in the ice. The forbidden Arctic map protected a desperate, massive engineering effort to maintain an invisible radar shield, quietly keeping the Cold War from turning into a nuclear apocalypse.